how many games will the Rams win in 2024? That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet joined the party, trying to get to 13,000 subscribers, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and also drop your score predictions and what are the X Factor games for the Rams this season. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. SI, Dodgers Nation, 24/7 Sports, Locked On Rams. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's show, we're running down the entire schedule once again, but this time we're throwing out predictions. We're going to give you our season predictions. First, though, this episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. All right, Travis. So, lots to get into on this show. We're going game by game, picking this record. Of course, it's the NFL. Like you always say, there's teams you think are going to be good that are bad. There's teams that you think are going to be good, bad that are good. So you just never know with the National Football League. But week one, it's a revenge game against the Detroit Lions. You got Jared Goff. You got Matthew Stafford. I think this is a big tone setter game for the entire Rams season. A difficult first part of their schedule. I think the Rams need to go out there and make a statement, and I think they will. I got the Rams winning in Detroit on Sunday Night Football to open the season.
Everything you said about the Rams right there applies to the Lions as well, right? These are two teams that I think are looking to, validate what they did a year ago. They're looking to validate their spot as a team in the NFC that is not just a team that had a good season, maybe unexpectedly in the Rams case, or maybe for the first time in Detroit's case. Both of these teams are coming into this one thinking, and again, it's week one, so we're going to overreact to it like crazy because that's what we do. But whoever wins that game is going to be like, oh, yeah, we're one of the teams to beat in the NFC. You're going to be 1-0, right? It's going to be, well, we just took out another really good team. Whoever wins will say that about the other. Whoever loses that game is going to be like, yeah, they weren't as good as they looked last year. If it's the Rams, it's, that defense without Aaron Donald, it's not happening. If it's the Lions, it's, same old Lions. They finally have some expectations and they face plant it all over again. There's stakes for both of these teams. I'm going to give a slight edge to the Lions for no other reason than they're at home. That's it. I think that they're really, really evenly matched teams. I think that both of these teams are going to be obviously very well prepared. They're going to be as healthy as possible, considering it's the first game of the season. But I think that if these two teams played each other 10 times, I think they go 5-5, and I'm going to give the Lions a very narrow advantage for no other reason than they're at home.
I think it's fine to say because, like you said, the advantage of being at home with a raucous crowd,
yep.
You got that Lions team with all that momentum. But I think that also is what I think the Rams could thrive in, going in there and playing spoiler on national TV. I can't see Matty Stafford losing again to that Lions team. I think he's going to go out there with something to prove. Got this Rams team getting it done.
You know what else, too, Doug, is something that we won't know about until that Sunday night in Detroit. What does the Rams kicking situation look like? You're going to have to make a real kick potentially in a real environment, a really loud place like you're talking about. One of the reasons the Rams were not able to take out the Lions last year in the NFC wildcard game was because they didn't trust their kicker. I think that's something that we're going to get our first good read at in week one as well.
It's a good point. You got Joshua Carty out of Stanford. It's a big first test going into Detroit, big nationally televised game. But I think he's got it, man. Stanford dude, he's good. He's smart. So week two, though, Cardinals. We know the Rams have had their way with Arizona for a long time now. I think this is a good bounce back game. They lose game one, but still, it's the Cardinals. I like the Rams in this one. I'm going 2-0 to start the year.
I'm going to need to see the Cardinals beat the Rams before I pick the Cardinals to beat the Rams. This is the one opponent on the Rams schedule year after year, you're like, yeah, they should win both of those games. Even though their division games are typically pretty close, the Rams just have their number. I think that's the Rams' first win of the season.
First win of the season against the Cardinals. In week 3, the San Francisco 49ers, these bitter rivals face off for the Rams home opener. They had a 1-10 stretch against this team before you go and you win in week 18 last season. So we know the regular season struggles they've had against San Francisco. They lose last year in this game. The Rams rebuilt offensive line. I think the way they're built gives them a better chance to have success against San Francisco, but I'm giving them the loss in this one, the home opener.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way. I think that what you just mentioned is the reason why I'm going to pick them for the first time in a long time against the 49ers in the regular season, where everybody's playing their guys. I know they got him at the end where Carson Wentz beat Sam Darnold, but it's that interior line that I think the Rams have completely retooled. I think that's the secret sauce to contending against the San Francisco team. And I do think that Sean McVay has something for Kyle Shanahan. I think it's one of the very few spots in Sean McVay's resume where it's like one guy, he just cannot figure out the puzzle right there. I think he wants to fix that, and I think that the Rams finally get that done.
Look, I just picked so many wins for the Rams against San Francisco. I'm just trying to try something different, trying to go the other way. I'm trying not to have this team go undefeated, right? So, I mean, 2-1 so far is a pretty solid start.
Yeah.
And then week 4 against the Chicago Bears. Now, I think the Bears are going to be a good team at some point, but I think growing pains are going to be in play early on. You got Caleb Williams. You got Romo Dunze, who we loved. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. I think that offense is going to be explosive, but early in the season on the road reminds me of that Colts game where you go in there and you beat Anthony Richardson early on in the season. I like the Rams winning in Chicago, up to 3-1 on the season at this point.
I think the Rams are in a good spot in Chicago as well, D-Mac, because of the where it falls in the schedule. We were having this conversation on my radio show yesterday, and we were talking about Caleb Williams and how we think he's going to do in his rookie season. And the answer is, how does a rookie quarterback do? Is almost always not very well. I mean, there are exceptions. We saw C.J. Stroud last year be absolutely awesome. There are a few examples where guys play well, but not many. Even one of the greats of all time, Peyton Manning, was 3-13 in his rookie year. He threw 1 million interceptions. And I get it that Indy was a bad team and that the Bears, all the players you mentioned, are a better team. New NFL quarterbacks typically are not super sharp, especially early in the season. I think the Rams get that one too.
So you got the dub on the road, and you come home to play the Green Bay Packers. Now, this Packers team, they've improved very quickly. Jordan Love has made strides. You bring in free agent signing Josh Jacobs. This offense, I think, is going to be potent. We know the Packers have always played the Rams tough. They won the last 4 against the Rams. You're back at home. I think this one's going to be tough. This one I could see the Packers kind of winning by a kick. So I think the Packers, they take this one, and the Rams are at 3-2 heading into that bye.
Now, the Packers are kind of the opposite of the Arizona thing that we were talking about. The Packers just seem to kind of have the Rams number. Now, of those games you mentioned 4 in a row, they were all in Lambeau Field. They were in Lambeau Field in bad weather. They were in Lambeau Field in the playoffs. They were in Lambeau Field with Jared Goff without a thumb. They were in Lambeau Field with Aaron Donald without a pec. So there's a lot of extenuating circumstances there, but it just feels like the Packers kind of have the Rams number. I'm with you. I think that's when they drop.
Like, I can't pick them to go undefeated. As much as the first draft, they were undefeated. Okay. The first draft, I was undefeated. Right. And then, of course, I like them against bye. And it's an early bye. I mean, talking a little bit about that, I mean, you have your bye in week 6. It's the second earliest possible bye. There's 8 teams with a bye in week 5 or week 6. The Rams are one of them. You look at this. This could help you if you have injuries early on, but also it could make for a grueling last part of the season where if you do make the playoffs, you'll be playing 13 consecutive games with no breaks. You have those TNF games. So we'll see how that plays out, but it's definitely something to monitor early in the year. Is how does that week 6 bye affect this Rams team?
It's super early, and I don't like it, and there's nothing you can do about it. And like you said, hopefully it comes at a time where maybe you need to fix a little nagging injury, the little bumps and bruises and things like that. But, you know, starting in week 7, they've just got an absolute meat grinder the rest of the way, and that's just the way it's going to be. There's nothing you can do about it. I don't like it. I always like it to fall towards the back half of the season. I think last year was in week 10. I think the year before that it was week 12. I think those are kind of where you'd like to have it in a perfect world, but they were due to get an early one. They haven't had an early one for a long time.
And with a tough early schedule, it could be beneficial. But also, I'm with you. I mean, I'm always in favor of a later bye. But you get the most important part of the Rams schedule that will determine their playoff hopes. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
It is winner take all time in the NBA, and it is winner take all time in the NHL. And FanDuel, they're giving you a shot to bring home the big win of the year for yourself, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, to bet on money lines, to bet on player props, to bet on whatever you want at FanDuel. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And think about all the things that you can see. I love the player props, right? Did you see what was going on at Dodger Stadium last night with Ellie De La Cruz? You want to get in on some props on one of the most exciting baseball players in all of the entire major leagues? Go check that out. You're a hockey person. Did you have anybody having a natural hat trick in the third period last night? You can get in on just about anything you want at FanDuel, and they're going to give you $150 in bonus bets. FanDuel.com/lockedon, LOCKED. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there. We appreciate you watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. And you can join that Everyday Listeners Club too. Membership is 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. All right, Travis, we're going to pick it up in Week 7 against the Las Vegas Raiders. This is going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL by a lot of experts' minds. I mean, I think this Raiders-Rams matchup always has some juice because of kind of the regional flavor of it. But after the bye, Rams are taking this one. They improved to 4-2 on the year.
Yeah, I think so too. Like you mentioned, the Rams are a better team than the Las Vegas Raiders. The Rams have more talent. They have a better coach. They have a better pedigree in recent history, all of these things. The part that makes it a little bit weird is that the game is in LA and it is against the Raiders, and the Raiders have a ton of people that are going to come in and fill up that stadium. So there is a little bit of a wild card there, but I agree with you. The Raiders have the biggest problem that you can have in the NFL. They don't have a quarterback answer, and that's very, very hard to overcome. I think the Rams win that game.
They're taking against the Raiders.
Yeah.
And then, and this is really like kind of this is like the Pop-Tart part of their schedule. It's soft in the middle, right? This is where you have to stack dubs, and then you really give yourself a great shot to not only make the playoffs, but maybe be a sneaky division winner contender. And I like this stretch of games for the Rams coming after the bye. So I'm feeling better about the schedule at this point. Then you have the Minnesota Vikings Thursday night football game. And this is going to be an interesting one because they faced Caleb Williams early on this season. This one, assuming you're going to face J.J. McCarthy, you got Justin Jefferson, you got a potent offense. Kevin O'Connell, we know, is a great head football coach. But TNF at home, I got the Rams winning this one.
Yeah, me too. For no other reason than it's a short week, and the team that goes on the road in the short week is at a massive disadvantage. Throw a rookie quarterback on top of that, like you mentioned. The Rams won't have traveled the week before. They had the Raiders at home the week before. So, yeah, I that's one of those games that if the Vikings do find a way to win it, I think that's a real missed opportunity for the Rams. I think this is one of those, I don't want to say it's a you have to have it, got to win, must win sort of situations, but that is one that is teed up for you to win. You should take advantage of it.
Yeah, and the good thing about the TNF games this year is both the Vikings and the 49ers, they're not coming off of buys, right? And we know typically the players don't love these games because you're coming off a Sunday game. You don't have a lot of time to prepare, but at least you're not having those buys for those teams where they have additional time and they're going to be fresh. So I like the Rams at home in that one. And then you got Seattle on the road. I think the Rams are going to have their way with Seattle this season. It's a tough road trip just because of the 12th man, but this is not a potent Seattle team like we've seen in the past. I think they're going to be solid just because they're an NFL team, but I don't have high hopes for this team. And the Rams, they always find a way to take care of business up in Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle's a good matchup for them. They're going through a coaching change. Pete Carroll, hasn't been there or has been there, I should say, for, seemingly the beginning of time. So they've got a fresh face there. I think that Sean McVay will have an advantage. But here's the thing. The Seahawks could be one of those teams that because they have a new coach, because they have kind of a new energy in that building, maybe is a little bit sneaky early on, that whatever they're bringing to the table at that point of the season still hasn't entirely been figured out by the Rams and the rest of the league. I still like the Rams to win that game up in Seattle because they typically win up in Seattle, but I don't think that's going to be an easy one. I wouldn't be surprised if that's a little stub toe action.
Yeah, that one's going to be difficult for sure. I mean, you got Kenneth Walker, you got a Seattle team that always plays up for that Rams game.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's going to be a difficult one for sure. But I just think that there's those two division opponents they're going to take advantage of this year. It's going to be Arizona and Seattle. And I think that's how you really, really put yourself in a good position. I think that's really a priority, especially with some of those difficult games later. And then week 10, calling it DMNF, Doug's Monday Night Football, week 10 versus the Miami Dolphins. And they're going to be a tricky team because at that point of the season, how are the Rams faring? How are the Dolphins playing? Are they both playoff teams? How are the offenses? Because when they're right, we know that Miami team is one of the most potent, explosive offenses in the NFL. Will Tua be healthy at that point? I mean, you just never know with that Miami Dolphins team. But at home Monday Night Football, Travis, it's actually the very first Monday Night Football at SoFi Stadium with fans in the stands. So it's going to be a special night. No way the Rams lose to the fans, even though they're 2-12 all time. I got the Rams getting the dub at SoFi.
It depends on how Tua's playing. If Tua's playing well and then the Dolphins are cranked up, they're a really tough team to beat. But how often is Tua playing well? About half the time, right? About half the time he looks like, oh, they got something. And no, that's never going to work. So I think that's predicated a lot on what the Dolphins look like at the quarterback position. It's a great game, like you said, Doug, for all the reasons that you mentioned. I also like the Mike McDaniel versus Sean McVay matchup.
Yes.
You just got two young, offensively driven minds, that guys that love just the chess and the science of football all over the place. So I think that's a good game. And again, I think this is the beginning of the run in the season where it's like, all right, it gets really, really tough. And these games, starting with Miami, going through week 17, I think is the really challenging part for the Rams. And I wouldn't be surprised if it got off to a little bit of a rocky start and they kicked it on Monday night.
That one could come down to the wire. I agree with you on that one. I mean, that Dolphins team, they're a wild card, man. They truly are. And then week 11 at New England, the Patriots, another team that could be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Is it going to be Drake May? Is it going to be Jacoby Brissett at that point? It's tough to tell, but it's on the road. An early start. It feels like, will the Rams kind of lose one of these very winnable games, and will they win one of these games where they're an underdog? You're going to see that at least one time. So I'm going to give the Rams a sneaky loss here. A sneaky loss to the Patriots on the road.
That's interesting because I think this is one of the few games you look at, they have to win that game. That's one of those that's put out right in front of you. Like you said, I'd be stunned if it wasn't Drake May by that point. We're deep into the season. They drafted him very high. He's got to be playing by that point in the season. The Rams have better players than the Patriots do. The Rams have, I believe, and we'll see what it looks like with Mayo, but I believe the Rams have a better coach. They need to win that game because, the difference between an 11-win season and a 10-win season could be the difference between winning the division or not. 10 wins or 9 wins could be the difference between being a wild card team or not. And losing to a team that might only win 4 or 5 games all season long, that can't happen. They need to win in New England, so I'm going to give them that one.
I just think sometimes when you're picking the NFL wins and losses, you almost have to force yourself to pick a weird loss.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
You're right. You're right.
It's such an imbalanced. I mean, the talent levels for the best team and the worst team are so marginally thin compared to other sports. So don't love picking that one, but I'm picking an upset in the next one. I got the Rams beating the Eagles at home. That Eagles team, they were reeling down the stretch. Jason Kelsey is gone. You still have A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. I mean, you have a lot of really talented offensive weapons, but the Rams are going to win some of these big home primetime games if they're healthy and this reestablished offensive line. I like the Rams beating the Eagles at home and avenging last year's loss.
So do I, and I wouldn't be surprised if by the time he got to there, if Nick Sirianni's job weren't the number one topic of conversation surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles. And I think the Rams would have a chance to punch his ticket once and for all. They're coming in. They made the playoffs. I want to say they were 10-1 or 11-0 at one point last season. I think they were the last team. They had a catastrophic end to their season. They were really bad down the stretch. They've had some changes on the offensive line, like you mentioned. I think the Rams not only win that game, that feels like a game that's an opportunity for them as well. To again, not a divisional game, but rather a conference game. I think the Rams beat the Eagles as well.
And then before we hit the break, the Saints on the road. And this is another one where you got the Saints.
Yeah.
You hate that one.
I think the Saints are tough to beat in New Orleans. The Rams have never, other than, the Nickel Roby Coleman special, that has not been a place where they've had a great deal of success. And I don't know. Like you said earlier, there has to be one of those games like they did what? They lost to the Saints? Yeah. And that just feels like one of those weird losses that's way because that gauntlet's on the road again, and you're just kind of going ping pong and back and forth. You're going east a lot. You got New York coming up. You're just coming back from New England, not that far away. All your home games are monsters during this run. And this feels like that proverbial road game that's just like they just weren't ready to go.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. Anytime you play the Saints in the Superdome, especially what happened in 2018, we know there's a little extra fire from that Saints crowd. And for me, I just look at Derek Carr's still their quarterback, right? I mean, when Derek Carr's the quarterback, I feel like your ceiling isn't crazy high. Alvin Kamara, he's losing steps. He's not gaining steps, right? Yeah. I think if the Rams come in prepared, they win that game. So I got the Rams winning another one on the road against the Saints. So coming up next, though, got our final prediction, some big games that will ultimately decide the Rams' fate. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Passion, drive, and patience. That's the formula for winning championships. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and a whole lot more. Whatever you are into, whether it's speed, power, or style, eBay Motors, they've got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Travis, this is the scary part of the schedule, right? This is where you're playing Street Fighter. You got the Vega, you got the M. Bison, you got the Saki. You're looking at these final bosses right here because a little bit of a gauntlet. You come home to face the Bills. And we talked about early in the year, that's when you wanted to face the Chicago Bears, right? Younger teams, younger players. Well, that's the wrong time to face the Bills because with Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, they're gone. At this point in the season, you have to feel good about Josh Allen hitting his stride and some of these younger players like Keon Coleman really starting to find their way. So little scared about that Bills matchup there in Week 14.
The only good news about that is that it's in L.A., but here's the rub of that. The last time the Bills were in L.A., it was 70% Buffalo fans, and the Bills absolutely put it on them. I know that the league changes dramatically from year to year, and that was a couple of years ago at this point, but I might just have a little PTSD from that ring ceremony night, the banner dropping night, all of the things that the Rams did on that Thursday night to kick off the season, and they got absolutely trucked. I think Buffalo wins that game, and I think you can't get over the fact that I saw what I saw a couple of years ago.
Buffalo's really tough. Josh Allen's really good. I think that he's out to prove that, hey, this is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think he's going to be playing with more of an edge this season. Just a lot of frustration, just not being able to break through the Super Bowl. So, yeah, I'll take the Bills in that one a little reluctantly. But Week 15 at San Francisco, we know the history between the 49ers and the Rams, but last time the Rams were in San Francisco, they did get that win. I still hold it true. I'm going to take it to my grave that the 49ers did not want to face the Rams last season. If they did, they would have beaten San Francisco, and the Rams would have made it to the Super Bowl. Look, hey, my dream, okay? Stay out of it. So I got the Rams in this one going up there, giving them a really good game, but still losing in the end.
Yeah, I just can't pick I just can't do the Rams sweeping the Niners. I picked them to win the opening game, the first time matchup at home earlier in the season. I think the Rams in San Francisco, they're not going to beat them twice. So I got the Niners in this one. Just simply the Niners are really good. They're going to win a bunch of games too, and I can't pick the Rams to beat them twice in one season.
Like I said, I picked the Rams to beat the San Francisco 49ers so much in recent years. I've lost money on this matchup so much in recent years that I'm picking the 49ers to win every time just to reverse hedge it a little bit.
It make you win either way. You either win some money or you win feelings.
Exactly. I'd rather win feelings. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But week 16 at New York, Jets with Aaron Rodgers. How are they going to fare? I mean, is this a team that's real? Is this a team that's going to be falling apart? I mean, this Jets team can go either way.
Yeah.
Tough to tell, but it's on the road at 10 a.m. start. Those are always difficult, a cross-country matchup. So this is a late-season game that at this point of the season, after stacking those dubs in the middle of the schedule, you need to win at least one of these games in this tough stretch. The Jets could be that game that the Rams go in there and they get that dub.
Late December in New York. Could be bad weather. There could be a lot of stuff going on there. This all turns to me on what the Jets look like and specifically what Aaron Rodgers looks like. If Aaron, by the time the Rams play the Jets on December 22nd, Aaron Rodgers is going to be 41 years old, coming off of an Achilles reconstruction, coming off of, I don't know if it's new that he's kind of out there and a different sort of guy and whether or not he's connecting with his teammates in a bad way, but if they're rolling, they're a big problem. They could also be a full-blown dumpster fire by the time that the Rams get there, and it could be a little bit of a layup situation if the thing has gone sideways. Of all the games we've talked about, this is one I could see the Rams winning easily. This is one I could see them going in there and getting their pants pulled down a little bit. I have no idea how this is going to go. It has everything to do with Rodgers and what he looks like.
100% agree. If Aaron Rodgers is anything like prime Aaron Rodgers or even late career twilight prime Aaron Rodgers, this team's going to be a problem. And a lot like the Rams, they also fortified their offensive line this offseason. You also added Mike Williams to pair with Garrett Wilson. Breece Hall is a fantasy wonder that does damage as well. And you know what, Travis? Every Rams Super Bowl run in Los Angeles has a little losing streak, has a little 3-game losing streak. So I had to fit that in there. Give me a Rams loss because it's going to lead to a Super Bowl victory. So,
all right,
I got the Rams losing that one.
I'm with you. You will not meet
recapture that magic.
You are not going to meet anybody that's more superstitious than I am. If you're telling me if they lose 3 in a row, that's good news for them, I'm here for it. I'll co-sign that all day long.
You got to do it. And then we finish strong, baby. It's how you finish. Week 17 versus the Cardinals at home. Rams are taking that one. At that point, that's your 10th win of the season. Rams, Cardinals at SoFi, they're getting that dub.
Yep. Like we talked about early in the season, Rams, Cardinals, I'm going to pick the Rams every time until you give me a reason not to. That's an easy one for me.
And then Rams, Seahawks at home. I got the Rams sweeping Seattle just like they did last season. So I've got an 11-win season for the Los Angeles Rams. I think they take care of business against division foes, Seattle and Arizona. You struggle against San Francisco, but guess what? They're not going to struggle against them in the playoffs. So an 11-win season, a 1-game improvement, but you can't put all these seasons together. I think 11 wins this year is bigger than 10 wins last year based on their schedule, based on losing Aaron Donald. And I think this team is going to be a sneaky contender in the playoffs.
I hope you're right. If you told me right now you can take 11-6 and put it in the bank, I don't think there's a Rams fan out there that wouldn't do it, because I think that's the ceiling for this team. I think it's a reachable ceiling for sure, an 11-win season. I think where they likely land is probably more in the 10 range. I think 9 is not out of the mix. And if they get a little unlucky, if they're unlucky with injuries, if the Aaron Donald loss is even more impactful than maybe we're anticipating, I don't think that 8 is out of the question. I think they're between 8 and 11. I think that good luck gets them 11. Good health gets them 11. A break here or there gets them 11. A kicker that can make kick gets them to 11. But if you kind of flip all that stuff, we're down at 8, which means probably lands somewhere at 9 or 10, which is kind of how, because you usually get about half of these things right. 10-7 right now probably does not win the division, not with San Francisco in it, but it gets you into the playoffs. 10-win season, 11-win season, I'd sign up for it right now.
Gets you into the playoffs. And look, if I told you that Aaron Donald was going to retire in his prime and you were still able to get double-digit wins, sign me up all day, right?
Well,
11 wins, sign me up.
Too, D-Mac. Think about this. But let's say they have 9 wins and there's 3 games left in the season, give or take. And one of the problems they have is on the defensive side of the ball. In particular, maybe they're not getting quite the pressure on the quarterback that they have. Tell me that that's not the recipe for Aaron Donald saying, you know what? I think I got an Eric Weddle-ish run in me through the postseason. Let me start to get back here. That may actually be the perfect little recipe to get him off of his. Well, he wouldn't be on the couch,
Please.
out of his secret dungeon of weights and back onto the football field.
Hey, we can only dream, and we're going to continue to manifest. But just some quick scheduling quirks, though. I mean, you look at the back-to-backs, right? You got the Lions and the Cardinals. Go to Detroit, and you come closer to home in Arizona. The other one, it's 49ers and Jets. So the first one's Santa Clara, and then you go to New York. But you're not playing 3 straight games on the road like we saw last season. Also, one of the worst scheduling quirks last year, one of the biggest disadvantages they had is you played 4 teams last season coming off of byes. This year, only 1 team coming off a bye, and that's the New Orleans Saints, not a team that's predicted to be really good this season. So I think there's just these little advantages that are better this year than we saw last year that I think are going to lead to wins this season. So I like the Rams, 11 wins this season, making the playoffs. So maybe we'll do like a way too early playoff prediction, just way too freaking early, but who they could match up with. But I got 11 wins this year. I think you got 10. We've got them both in double digits. So big year for your Los Angeles Rams coming up. That's coming to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And for Travis Rogers, you can follow him at Travis Rogers. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.